So what is up? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today I'm going to have on my good friend, mentor, Jim Zorbas. So I've known him for about 4 to 5 years, so he's a very intelligent, successful individual. I've got a lot of value from him over time, a lot of good tips on mindset, kind of habits, things like that, business knowledge. So just going to try to extract as much of that, extract his story so you guys can take some value from it and obviously learn, apply to your lives, and have a better life overall. So hope you guys enjoy. If you do, obviously like and share this video. We would really appreciate it. So with that said, let's get into it. All right, so tell me about your childhood, because I've never heard the full story of you growing up. I know you grew up in Lowell, but I don't know the whole gist of the situation.
Okay, so 2 immigrant parents.
Yep.
From Greece.
Both of them?
My mother's Greek descent, but migrated to Canada when she was young. So no education, and came here, grew up in low-income housing, basically in the projects. My father was a musician by trade, so never had any money. And yet they were too proud to get government assistance. So we just never had any money. So I tell people all the time, that little kid in the hood with a basketball, like that's me. I don't look it it now, but that's me. I literally had, I remember I wanted to go to the carnival every year around the city at the commons, the North Common, the South Common. They'd have these carnivals. You see them now. And I had scraped together $1 to go. And
at what age?
Would have been around 11 or 12. And I remember I had the money in my hand, and all my friends were going, and they had gotten ahead of me because I didn't have any money to go. So I scrounged up, and I was so excited I started running to catch up to them, and the money flew out of my hands. And I remember I was really distraught by it. But the point was, I know what it's like to not have $1 to your name. I know what it's like to open your refrigerator and literally only see baking soda. I mean, and I had, some other, my dad had a rough stretch. I love him to death. We're really close now, but it was very difficult growing up, and really had to crawl my way out of the gutter.
And then basketball was because you played at UMass Lowell. Do you get a scholarship or no?
I got a scholarship.
Yeah, so you didn't have to pay for college?
I got a full scholarship. Nice. I didn't have to pay. So let me back up. So my parents, when I was in 8th grade, my mother there was a family that was moving to Greece, and they had a Greek restaurant, and she begged them to take it over. So my parents were able to rent the restaurant from them and run it. And so for a 2-year stretch, we had some money. And
was that in Lowell?
That was in Lowell. Yeah, that was downtown. The place has since closed, but it was good for a couple of years, and then we went back to struggling again. But so actually that was in end of 7th grade. So I literally worked in the restaurant every day, because in the Greek culture, that's what kids, and there wasn't value placed on sports. So it's no, you're going to work because we need money. So I didn't start playing. I tell this story all the time. Ironically enough, I got a scholarship because I was a 3-point shooter. I didn't know what the 3-point line was. I had a younger kid show me 8th grade before going into freshman year. That's how little I knew. I had played in the housing project that we lived in. I would play pickup, but I never took it very seriously. I love football. So I actually played a season of football after 8th grade, and I wanted to pursue football in high school. I caught the bug with basketball. I went to Lowell High. Got cut from the team, ironically enough, by my father-in-law. I ended up marrying his daughter. but I got cut from the team, and thinking back on it, so here was the first kind of big negotiation I did, right, to kind of get to where I wanted to go, and it was a really big lesson at the time. So I got cut. I felt like I was probably good enough athletically, but I didn't know how to play basketball.
Yeah.
So I went back.
How tall were you in freshman year? Were you
I think I was probably 5'7".
That's not bad.
Yeah, I wasn't a
scrawny kid, or were you pretty?
I was very lean, but I was always like I was athletic, you know. So I went home that night, and I remember saying like, I wasn't gonna accept no. Yeah. So it's like I got to figure a way. I got to figure this out. So I went back the next day, just showed up to practice. Yeah. Asked the coach if I could, ask my father-in-law if I could speak to him before practice. And I said, look, I know I'm not good enough to make the team, but I just want to practice with you guys because I feel like I'm really close. I don't expect to play at all this season. Just let me practice with the team. I won't be a problem.
Yeah. Was that for the varsity team, JV team?
No, this was a freshman team. Yeah. But you have to understand too, back then, freshmen played freshmen for the most part. Sophomores played JVs. And a lot of times in Lowell, because the program was so good back then, juniors played JVs. Yeah. So I just begged him. I said, just let me. So he allowed me to do it. Yeah. And so I had an in, right? Yeah. So now I was in. So then I remember my next target was, and I don't want to mention the person's name, even though I love him to death. He's a great guy. But the next thing I did is, instinctively, I wanted to be a shooting guard. Yeah. I don't know where that came from, but it's like so I targeted what I felt was going to be the starter on the freshman team, and I would line up next to him. I figured out how the coach picked competition for each drill and how he would pick guys, because he would do a lot of one-on-one full court. Yeah. A lot of half court one-on-one. Yeah. So I would always stand next to him so that I could get picked. Yeah. So I literally targeted him because I knew, okay, that's my next target. Yeah. I got my foot in the door. My next target now is I have to be better than him. So I would say probably by midway through the season, 3/4 into the season, I started beating him one-on-one full court. And, you know, I would leave practice. We would practice after school at the Rogers School, and then I would walk across the street to the YMCA and literally play till like 9 o'clock at night. My parents would close the restaurant, and my mother would come get me. Yeah. But I literally, like, I just knew, like, I had to outwork, you know, to catch up. So, you know, and again, I was playing with all the kids in the program had played travel basketball. They had played since the 3rd grade. Like, you know, Lowell at the time, not so much now, but back then, Lowell, like, there was no internet. There was no, so like basketball was a big deal. Like, it was in the paper all the time. Like, you know, there was a lot of, and we just had great players in the city, you know, I mean, great players. So I knew that I had to, I just really had to work. So by the end of the year, I felt, let me back up, and I know I'm bouncing around, but I never played freshman year. Yeah. I got in maybe, he gave me a uniform eventually, and I maybe got in like 1 or 2 games for a minute. Yeah. But like, there was a kid that would come to the games and make fun of me all the time because I never got in the games, right? And so after my freshman year, I just started really working my ass off. And
did you feel like basketball could be like, because I don't know what your thought process was just starting, but were you like, this could be my way out, this could be my way to, was there ever a point where you're like, oh, I can get to college with this for free and like this could be an opportunity?
Yeah, but that didn't come for a year later. So I worked my ass off. Like, I'm talking from the time I got out of school till 9 o'clock. Like, I tell people this, and I think they think I'm exaggerating, but I burned my fingertips off. Like, my fingertips would all be cut. Yeah. Because I would shoot so much. Back then, you used real leather balls, right? Yeah. And I'd be at the Y, literally, or UMass Lowell. At the time, it was U Lowell. But like I literally worked so hard that my sophomore year I started JVs, and I still had that kid as my target, but now I had passed him.
Yeah.
And I would not let up on him for 4 years. Like even my senior year, when I had already committed to Lowell in practice, I would always make it a point to go at him. He doesn't even know this because I was just playing mental games with myself.
Yeah.
But I always made it a point to go at him. I never lost that edge of attacking him. But during my sophomore year, a guy that was coaching in our program had played at Boston College. He was a captain at BC a few years prior. So he started taking us to Boston College games.
Nice.
And we went and watched BC play Pitt. They had Sean Miller, Jerome Lane. I don't know if you know those guys. Jerome Lane was probably the first guy to shatter the backboard in a dunk. And I remember being at that game, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is incredible!"
Yeah.
Like, and I remember saying it to my teammates. I was like, "I've got to get a scholarship." And they were kind of looking at me whatever. But that because
you were still on JV. You were on JV at the time. Right?
I was a JV player, and to be honest with you, I started JVs, but I still didn't know how to play.
Yeah.
You know, so my junior year, the start of my junior year, I made the varsity, but the coach. I still don't like. I tell my son Luke this all the time. Like, don't wait for other people to believe in you because like you'll always be disappointed. Yeah. So at the start of my junior year, he had me swinging, playing JV and then dressing varsity. And in like the first 3 games of JV, like I would only play a half. Yeah. Now I was scoring like 30 points in a half. Like I was pissed, right? And I'm scoring 30. I remember this is a true story. I'm in the game and I take a deep 3 and I'm just like, I shouldn't be playing JVs, but the kid guarding me after I hit the 3 looks at me and says, "What are you doing here?" Yeah. Like, but I knew like that's what it was going to take for me to, to get his attention. So after 3 games, I move up. I go 4 for 4 my first game playing varsity, hit 4 threes. Yeah. Score 12 points. Second game, I do well again. Third game, we're third in the state. We're playing the number 1 ranked team in the state, which is Haverhill at the time. There was close to 4,000 people at Lowell High. And it was a huge game. Like the bleachers all the way around. Like it was the hype. Yeah. And I scored 20. I hit 6. I went 6 for 7 from 3. This is like just like maybe 5 games removed from playing JV, right? Yeah. And I scored 20, and I go 6 for 7 from 3. I had a really, really good game. And at the time, again, newspapers were the thing, right? Yeah. So I tell this story to friends that are close, and I'll share it with you. But so by that point, my parents are separated. Yeah. My mother and my sister and I, we had to leave. Like,
so who were you staying with? Like your mom or your dad?
No, I was with my mother, and we had when they got separated, we were staying with an uncle for a while. So finally, we had just gotten a place of our own, and I remember. So I dropped 20. Next day in school, I'm feeling really good, right? Like everyone's talking about the game. We're walking to practice, and we would go to this little convenience store beforehand, and I walk in, and I'm on the front page of the newspaper, and it says Prime Time Zorbas, right? I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. But the thing I remember most about that is I got the paper, and that night when I got home, like, we didn't have any furniture. So, like, I remember so excited to walk in to show my mother. But I remember walking in, and I'm like, man, if people really knew like what's going on, like I literally did not have furniture. Yeah,
like nothing, just no.
We had no furniture. We had a box with a TV on it.
Yeah. Do you have beds, like mattresses?
We had mattresses. Yeah. and my mother was starting over, so she's working her ass off just to put food on the table. But I remember that was like, so that was another thing. I was like, I gotta get out of here, you know. And but that was something I'll never forget. I don't know why it hit me in that moment, but you know, but I had really close friends of mine who all played basketball with me, and they started, and they never knew.
Yeah.
I never told anyone. Like no one ever knew how bad of a situation I was in.
Yeah.
But I remember I was on the front page of the paper, and I remember thinking, like, man, if people only knew, like, what the hell's going on here. But I worked that entire summer. I would get up and work out, and then I was working at a car wash. I'd work the car wash all day, and then at night in the summer around here, there was big games. Like, we'd get former college players. Like, again, there was just incredible players in the city, much better than me. And we would always play at night, so then I'd go back at night. But I saved all my money that summer, and I bought furniture for us. Nice. I decked out, though. I went to a place, Building 19 and a half. I don't even know if it exists now, but basically I bought furniture for our entire house. Yeah. And
how much did that cost?
I don't remember. But literally, you know, dining table, couches, coffee tables. Like,
so you had no furniture for how long? This must have been a while, right? Because from the season all the way till the summer.
We didn't have furniture for over a year.
That's crazy.
Over a year, yeah. I mean, and we were eating macaroni and cheese every night because that's all we could afford. Like
crazy.
Like I don't want to ever eat macaroni and cheese again because that's all. So I cringe. Look, you know how a private person I am. So like I cringe saying this on camera because like I don't want my mom would be. Like my mom did the best that she could, and she did an unbelievable job. But we had some tough, you know, we had some really, really tough times. And then growing up, and then when she left my dad, it got even tougher. Yeah. So now I'm in high school.
Where was your dad? Was he living close, or was he?
Yeah, he's close, but it was good for them to part ways. And but like now I'm in high school, like, you know, and I've got friends and I can't like bring anyone to my house. And it was very difficult. But my junior year is when I met, I started working out at UMass Lowell, and I met Stan Van Gundy, who ended up coaching in the NBA for years. And he took a
he was coaching there, right?
He was coaching at the time. Yeah, he was the coach. And he took a liking to me, and I'd be there every day working, and then I started working out with his players in the off season, and I remember the first time I kind of tried it, and he didn't say anything, and then I just started playing with them, and I'd show up every day.
Was that were you strategic with that, or were you just like, I'm just trying to get better? Were you like, oh, I could maybe try to go here, or were you just like, I'm just gonna try to get better?
No, I'll tell you when I had no inkling that hadn't hit me yet. Yeah. So one day, it dawned on me, one day after we worked out, the assistant coach, his name was Jeff House, and he was a really nice guy also. And he came over to me and he said, hey, Coach did a lecture this weekend at a camp. And I said, oh yeah? He goes, you know what he talked about? And I said, no. And he goes, he talked about you. That's great. And I was like, talked about me. Yeah. And he's like, he talked about your work ethic and how hard you work and how much you put into it. And I was like, wow, I was very honored, right? Yeah. Because be honest with you, like my JV coach at Lowell High believed in me. I never felt the varsity coach believed in me. Yeah. In fact, I tell Luke this all the time. I feel like if it wasn't known that I was committed to UMass Lowell, I don't even think the guy would have started me my senior year. And I ended up being, I think I was the leading scorer on the team. Yeah.
So he probably just, for whatever reason, He just didn't like you. Didn't want to give you your credit.
No, he didn't. And in fact, when Van Gundy did my home visit and talked to, you know, my mother about coming there, he told her that he's like, every time I'd call to talk about him, they'd want to talk about some of the other guys. And my teammates were good players too. Okay, so I don't want to take anything away from them. But I just never felt like my head coach believed in me. So Van Gundy was really the first person to really believe in me, and that gave me like super confidence, So then I committed to them early and just got it out of the way.
Year or senior year?
Summer after junior year, he told me that they were gonna offer me. So he asked me, would you come? And I was like, of course. And I had a few other looks too, and a few divisions, because so I could shoot. And my freshman year in high school is the first year that there was a high school 3-point line. That's how, I feel old even saying that. But so like the 3-point shot wasn't what it is now.
Most people probably couldn't shoot that well.
Most people were not shooting threes, right? So I did have other interests, but I considered him like a father figure at that point, because I was with him a lot. I'd be there every day working. He took me under his wing because he knew how difficult my home life was. And then I went, and then my first year. So when I get to Lowell, and I'm 6'1", I'm only like 160 pounds, and he wants to redshirt me. So I said fine. 5 games into the season, I was playing so well in practice. He had the assistant come to me, and he's like, "Hey, coach thinks we made a mistake redshirting you. Do you want to play?" And I was like, "No, I've already lost 5 games." And it was a mistake. In hindsight, I should have played.
So you said I'll just keep the red shirt and just not play?
Yeah. And
so did you go to college for 5 years or 4?
I went for 5. Yeah. And then after the season, last thing I'll tell you about Van Gundy, but I remember after the season, I'm at a party one night. It's a Friday night with my teammates, and it's like 1 a.m, and Rich Perkins, who I played with, who was a friend of mine, came. I bumped into him at the party, and he goes, "Hey, did you hear about Coach?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "He's leaving." And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Was this in season or out of season?
This is after the season. So I called him at 1:30 in the morning. And I remember that's the kind of relationship I had with him. And I remember his wife answered, and she was like, "Jimmy, is everything okay?" And I said, "No, it's not okay. Can I speak to Coach?" And he got on the phone. I said, "You're leaving?" And he's like, "Come see me tomorrow morning." So I went into his office at 8:30, and he's like, "I'm either going to be the head coach at Vermont, or I'm going to be the assistant for Stu Jackson at Wisconsin." He's like, "If I go to Vermont, I'm taking you with me." And
was Vermont D1 at the time or D2?
D1.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm taking you with me." And he ended up going to Wisconsin. And then, other coach came in, and I felt like, so my sophomore year, I started to have back problems. And since I've had surgery, up and down my spine. But I battled through injuries. I knew I was good enough to play. But I got to a point my junior year where I felt like the coach, I was back in that situation where the coach didn't, I don't think, appreciated me as much. He brought in his own guys. And although he was giving me an opportunity, I felt he wasn't being fair with me. And I was literally suffering every day. Like, I literally couldn't put my socks on. And you got to rewind.
What was wrong with your back?
I had a herniated disc, right? And you got to rewind 30 years now, right? We're talking 30 years ago. Surgery back then was very scary. Now it's like, I've had surgery on my neck, back. So I wasn't willing to have surgery. So I walked away and I stopped playing. I didn't play my senior year, and I gave up my scholarship. They were going to allow me to keep my scholarship, and they wanted me to do like administrative work, and I said, "No, fuck that. I'm done," and I didn't play. If I could rewind, I probably would have had the surgery and would have finished it out, but I didn't, and I feel like that was. I look back on it like that was probably my that was probably my first failure where I was like, you know what, like I should have just gotten surgery. I should have got my back right. But I was a mess. I was in a lot of pain, and but I regret not finishing what I started. You know, so yeah, that's my basketball career in a nutshell. Then I started coaching and you know, got into business.
You coached for how many years again? Like 2 or 3? For because you were coaching at what end of college?
Well, I coached. So after that, while I was still in college, my last year in college and then 2 years after, I coached at Lowell High. I was a JV coach, freshman and then the JV coach. And then I went to Endicott for 3 years, got my master's degree while I was coaching there.
Yeah.
I was the assistant at Endicott.
And coming out of college and coaching, were you like, oh, I'm going to be a coach? Was that like where you
thought you
were going to do?
I thought I was going to teach and coach. Yeah. So I went to Endicott. So
you were going to be a teacher?
I got my master's in education, right?
Yeah.
So I go to Endicott thinking I want to coach,
yeah.
and I'm going to get my master's degree in teaching. So if I can't coach in college, I can go coach high school and be a teacher. And right away, I recognized that like I didn't like recruiting at all. And I'll tell you what I didn't like. See, I realized back then that college is a big sham for many kids.
Yeah.
It's not like if you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, or you know what you want to do, then college is the right place for you. But I'm recruiting a lot of kids from inner cities that are going to take sports management or psychology. They're going to be in over $100,000 of debt when they're done.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel good about that.
Yeah.
And so I realized like that wasn't for me. While I'm at Endicott,
you felt like you were probably putting those kids in a bad situation, right? Like
I felt like I was putting them in a horrible situation because I was setting them up for something in the future that was going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. So I coached there for 3 years, and I coached under Jamie Cosgrove, who was an incredible coach. And I learned a lot about the game. But my third year there, while I'm finishing my master's, I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit, right? And so I get involved with a guy, and we start a video conferencing company, which is basically FaceTime and Zoom before there was FaceTime and Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay. So back then, video conferencing was more just the hardware. So for example, if you had video conferencing hardware and I did, we could communicate.
Yeah.
But there was never any software platforms behind it to make it as easy as it is now. Like people take for granted now, FaceTime, you can just do that, or Zoom.
Yeah.
But back then there was, the technology was so new, but I could see even back then the
that
potential.
It would become popular.
So I knew nothing about business, okay? I just knew that I had an opportunity here.
How old were you at this point?
25, okay? So I launched this company. So I meet with the president of the college. His brother's a angel investor.
Yeah.
And I pick his brain. So essentially what we do is we create an online interviewing network that will allow college kids to interview for jobs and get career help right from campus.
Yeah.
Okay. So we sign up BU, Northeastern, Bentley, almost got Harvard, and we had 5 schools, UNH, and we, again, you have to understand, back then you can't access video conferencing from your computer, so you have to have a kiosk.
Yeah.
So these schools gave us a room in their career center, and we outfitted them with the equipment.
Yeah.
Now, by then we had raised, I think our first round, we raised $100,000 to do that, right? So we went out, we pitched investors, we got investor money. Now, I don't know shit about, like I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
But again, it's the same thing like going back to freshman year in basketball. Like I didn't want to take, like I had a vision of what I wanted, and I wasn't going to be stopped, right? So we raised 2 rounds, got acquired by another bigger company that was doing that. And then I thought I was going to be worth $100 million by the time I was 30. And I was being told I was going to be worth $100 million by the time I was 30.
Yeah.
And then there was probably, in the early 2000s, there was a dot-com burst.
Yeah. So that was right before that?
Yeah. So we went down we went down. So now I'm, 28, 29 years old, and I have to start over.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into the, I was basically just looking for a job.
Yeah.
So I went from thinking I'm going to be worth $100 million.
Yeah.
Excuse me, to driving a shitty car and having to start all over again. So I reached out to a former alum of Lowell, a guy that had played basketball at Lowell, and that's how I got into the sports flooring business.
I remember you telling me that like you were getting into the sports floor business, and someone was like telling you like don't do it, like it's way too hard of a business.
So when we first got in it, I went to work.
You started by yourself, right?
No, I went first. I went to work for a guy, and I was selling sport court and which is outdoor stuff, and he got the opportunity to sell gymnasium floors, and so he asked me to oversee that, and I reached out to a few experienced companies in the area who I knew would be my competitors, but I just wanted to gauge, and one of them was literally, when I called him, was going out of business. And he's like, look, can I give you a piece of advice? I said, sure. And he's like, run as far away from this business as you can. He's like, you're not going to make it. It's difficult. He just rattled off 10, but my gut was telling me I didn't see it. So I ignored, what he was saying. And we started in Maine, in the state of Maine, did really well. And then after about 2 years, I got an opportunity to start my own dealership, which I did. So by then my wife and I had built our house, with modest money. But I got a home equity line of credit on my house for $100,000, and that's how I started that's how I started the business. And at the time, I was scared to death. I remember. Someone my wife met through school, because she's a teacher, came to our house to sell us like life insurance and a 401k and all that. Yeah. And I remember her telling him, we were sitting in the kitchen, and I'm maybe 30 years old now, 31 years old. And she's like, told him that I just started this business and how well I was going to do. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, oh shit, like I can't let her down, like she believes in, because I wasn't sure. Yeah. But, and I can tell you this, that, a lot of people, when they're coaching kids in sports, they talk about how the lessons you learn in sports you can apply to life. I mean, I took the work ethic that I had used to get a scholarship in basketball, and I just literally applied it right to business. I was working 16, 18 hours a day for years, and just didn't take no for an answer, and got it done and built a successful business.
You were originally running it like out of your garage in your house, right?
I was literally, for the first 4 or 5 years, I was running it out of my garage. My employees would have to show up to my house every morning, go into my house, get the supplies that they needed. But I've always tried to, to run lean businesses. Yeah. And back then I was doing it because I was just scared to death, right? But it also taught me that you don't need a lot to have a successful business. Like, you don't need fancy offices, you don't need fancy vehicles. And so, and then finally I bought a warehouse with an office above, and I put, a bunch of money into making it nice, and we had a nice, place to work out of, but I definitely waited.
When was the first time with that company that you were like not scared, where you're like, all right, I'm all right?
So my first year, so it's funny, my first year was at 2008 when the economy was going to shit.
That's when you started it? Yeah.
And that was the end of my first year. Yeah. And
that's crazy. And you did pretty good the first year, right?
I after taxes, everything, I had $260,000, and I had never had so much money in my life, and I couldn't believe it. right?
Yeah.
And that's after paying all my living expense, support my family for the year.
So you said like 260.
I had 260,000 extra dollars, and I was blown away that I had made so much money. And I remember I'd tell my wife, and she like didn't want to hear because just like didn't believe me. But so then after that, it was just like every year got more difficult because we kept growing, but it got a little bit easier because I knew the money was coming.
So how'd you go from, you went from what, 250 or 260? What was your best year that you had with that?
Man, you're asking me all the private questions. I made probably close to 800 my best year.
Nice. So how'd you go from the 260 to the 800?
Working my ass off.
What did you do differently? I mean, obviously you work hard, but like, what did you do differently?
So, I always used to say this, I grew responsibly. So I wasn't chasing the money. I wanted to do a good job, and as we started to do good work and honor like our mistakes, when we had mistakes, I would stand by them and I would do what I said I was going to do for people when I said I was going to do it. We started to hire more people, and so the business just grew organically, but I didn't rush it. I wasn't chasing the money. I was trying to build a solid business with great references. And so, it's I can't even tell you I had this master plan to say like, I'm going to get to the point where I make, that much money in a year, or I just wanted to do a good job, and I just kept my head down, and my life got a little bit easier. So, we still, even to this day, I still live in that same house that I built, 21 years ago, I mean, we drive nice cars and stuff, but I don't, I try and live within my means. So
what would you do differently about, because obviously you sold the business, what would you do differently, like looking back, because obviously you've gotten older, you've gotten smarter, what would you do differently if you were to go back, start the same business, or take it over today? Like, what would you do different?
It's a great question. So I wouldn't have, well, I just said I grew responsibly. I would see, I think for anyone listening, like if you're starting a business, your instinct is you have to do everything, right? And it's very difficult as it grows. That's your baby, to relinquish, responsibilities and delegate. So if I could do it differently, I hired a guy who ended up being he's head of sales. He was my general manager. He's great. He helped me grow the business. But I probably would have hired 2 more salespeople under him. And said, fuck it, let's go. We're going to grow. Let's get the business and we'll figure out how to get it done. And so I would have scaled a lot quicker than I did, and ultimately would have probably sold the business for twice what I sold it.
So what made you decide to sell it? Or like, did you make that decision? Was that a tough decision to be like, I'm going to sell this?
I'll tell you exactly. So it's a very difficult business, okay? And I was, so I maybe 13 years ago, I built my first house in Maine, as you know. And then 4 years ago now, I bought the house with my brother-in-law on the ocean, right? And so so it was the house that we bought on the ocean. We hadn't torn it down and built a new one yet. But I had the house that we bought. It was our first summer in it. And I'm sitting on the patio in the back. It's Sunday morning. I'm staring at the ocean. And one of my closest friends is a big-time consultant for McKinsey Consulting.
They're like one of the biggest ones.
They're one of the biggest, and he's a partner, and he crushes it, right? He's a very successful guy. And every Saturday or Sunday for years, we have this little routine where we talk for an hour, and we just talk business. We talk ideas. So he called me that Sunday morning, and I was on the patio. I answered the phone. He's like, what are you up to? I said, I'm mentally just trying to get to a point to get ready to do this tomorrow. Because summer was always the busiest time of year for us. And it was a grind.
So this is before the summer?
This was during the summer.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's Sunday.
So you were gonna go. You had to go back.
So I just worked all week, Saturday included. It's Sunday. I'm catching my breath. I'm staring at the ocean. Right. I don't want to leave my new house.
Yeah.
My new old house.
Yeah. Because you didn't tear it down yet.
I hadn't torn it down, and I know I got to get it Monday, and I got to get back in the meat grinder.
Yeah. So
he says to me, he goes, "Why don't you sell the business?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What do you mean sell the business? How am I going to sell the business?" He's like, so he knows my financial picture as well as anyone. Yeah. So he can give me that type of advice, knowing where I'm at the time.
Yeah.
So for the next like 6 weeks, every week we kind of talk about what that would look like.
Yeah.
And about 3 weeks.
So what year was that? That was like 4 years ago, right?
That was about 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, three and a half years ago. Yeah. So I remember about 3 weeks after that, I walked in. We're at the beach again. It's on the weekend. I walked into the kitchen. My whole family's there, and I said, "I'm selling my business." And everyone looked at me like, "What do you mean you're selling your business?" "I'm selling my business." So
And at this point, you already had a decent amount of real estate, right?
So I had real estate. I'd also started a second flooring company, right? And that was kind of less taxing. Mm-hmm. It didn't require as much of my time, and that was starting to get going. And so I should back up. About February 16th of 2019. Yeah. Okay. I had been journaling, meditating for years, for 15 years. But I'd gotten so busy and so beat down by my business, even though financially I was doing really well, it was so taxing that I'd kind of gotten away from it. February 16th of 2019, I find Wim Hof on YouTube. I remember
right at a week or two after you found him, we were impressed and you're like, "I just started this, you got to try this."
I find Wim Hof on YouTube. Yeah. It's February 16th, or it's that Sunday. I'm pretty sure you can look it up. Yeah. February 16th, 2019. I think it's a Sunday. If not, it's that Sunday hovering around that date. I find Wim Hof, and I just really get into the breathing and the cold showers. And then I start meditating again in the morning. I get back to journaling. Yeah. And I'm just trying to find my way, because at this point I feel like I'm making a lot of money, but I'm not happy. Yeah. I'm not. I just feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So it's funny because when my friend Alex mentions you should sell your business, and I go back and I look at my journal entries, I could see I'm trying to find something. I'm trying to find my way. I know what I'm doing is great, but it's not really.
You feel like you had an extra, you could be doing something bigger? Is that why you feel like you were probably not miserable, but?
I was pretty close to miserable at times. Yeah, I felt like I was capable of doing much more. Yeah, but you couldn't. The business was taking up so much of my time that I couldn't. Then in addition to that, a close friend, one of the Press Cafe guys, I kind of became like a mentor to him. Mm-hmm. So he and I would meet for coffee all the time, and he would, I would give him advice. Mm-hmm. He would always seek my advice on things. Mm-hmm. And I remember leaving one of those little coffee sessions and saying, "You fraud motherfucker. You give all these people advice, and yet you're playing so below what you're capable of." Yeah. And so I got to the point where I'm like, I'm never giving anyone else advice until I start, living up to my ability. Yeah. And B, I need to figure out what that means. Yeah. So that was right around that Wim Hof time. Yeah. So, now over the course of the next 6 months, I would establish this routine that I do to this day. Every day. I don't compromise it. Yeah. I don't let up on it. Mm-hmm. I wake up at 5:30. I meditate. Then I do Wim Hof's breathing exercise. Mm-hmm. Then I take a freezing cold shower. Yeah. If I'm in Maine, I jump in the ocean, which is freezing. Yeah. Then I drive to Prest. I get my smoothie. I sit down and I write my goals. Yeah. And I do that every day. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much money I make. It doesn't. Yeah. I do that every day. Yeah. That's that was created in that 6-month period starting in February. And then from that, I started the second business. I sold, I got the courage. You know, people are like, what do you mean you needed courage to sell your business? Mm-hmm. It took a lot of courage because, yeah, you're getting a big chunk of money, yeah, but then what?
Yeah.
You know,
there's no more money coming in.
Yeah. It's like, so I had to reinvent myself, right? Yeah. And I was doing real estate, mm-hmm, but I was doing it on a much smaller scale than what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So
how many units do you think you had then?
I had over 10, but we were like flipping too. So we were building houses and, you know, and selling. So it wasn't the whole, you know, buy and keep rental, mm-hmm, thing wasn't, I was experimenting with flips or building single families. See, I had built my own house. Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law and I had built his house. We had built our beach house. So I had experience. I knew how to build a house. Yeah. But I was still, you know, I was experimenting. Yeah. But I had enough money where I was buying houses and just getting my feet wet, you know? And, but, you know, from that journaling consistently every day, that meditating, I started to realize, okay, like, and then I figured out I needed to sell the business, that it was weighing me down, mm-hmm, and that I wanted to get into, you know, bigger developments. I wanted to build buildings, mm-hmm, and get into that space. And that's, you know, that's where I am now.
So how long did it take from the day you were like, I want to sell, to actually getting the check? Because I know sometimes it's, because I remember like
2 years.
Yeah, because I remember when I was training Luke, and I'd come in and be like, oh, how's it going? You'd be like, oh, some days you'd be like, oh, it sucks. Like, this guy's coming in to do due diligence or whatever. Like,
it was a lot, because obviously a guy's paying 7 figures for your business. Yeah. They you know, they take your clothes off and they look at everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it took from the time I made the decision to sell, mm-hmm, to the time I got the money wired, mm-hmm, to my account was close to 2 years. Yeah. From the time we got the buyer to the time I closed was probably 6 months.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But
how was it the first day after? Because you still kind of had to go in and help him a little bit, right? Like,
not really, because the general manager that worked for me was running the business at the time, so I didn't.
And he stayed, right?
He stayed. Yeah, he's still there.
So what was the first day waking up after that, like, where you didn't have to worry about it?
It wasn't as like. So I'll say this, okay? Like this, I think this is important to say. Everything I've ever accomplished, mm-hmm, by the time it actually happened, it's never been like that lottery ticket moment when, mm-hmm, you're like, holy shit, I won the lottery. Because I rehearsed it. I was already 2 steps past it. Yep. You understand? So I'd already celebrated it before I'd even put the business on the market. You understand me? Yeah. So like, it wasn't like sense of relief. If anything, for the first month, it was a little bit scary. Yeah. Like, I had to really manage my emotions, mm-hmm, because I was starting over. Yeah. And the business that I just sold was very good to me. Yeah. Like, it kept, like, I called it my spigot. Like, it just kept bringing money. Yeah. Right. But it demanded so much of my time that it put a ceiling on my growth. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't a lottery ticket moment. Yeah. It was just business as usual.
Mm-hmm. So then once you sold, it was just, you were trying to grow the business right now, Icon, and then just real estate, right? Yeah.
So I had Icon, but I had people in place, because I knew this time around I wasn't going to make the same mistake I made last time. Yeah. I was going to delegate. I put people in place. They run the day-to-day operations, and I was going to be freed up to focus on real estate. Yeah. So I knew from the first go around that I wasn't going to make that mistake.
Yeah. What's your goal with this current business? Like, is it just
with Icon?
Icon, yeah. Do you want to hold it? You want to just?
No. So I kind of have a 5-year plan right now, mm-hmm, which puts me.
You're what, 2 years in?
No. 5 years from now, which puts me, both Luke and Elena, graduating high school. Yeah. So it's kind of I'm like 4.5 years in, but, mm-hmm, I'd like to sell it, mm-hmm, and you know, and then I have this plan where we'll move to Florida, mm-hmm, you know, and I'll really start to enjoy myself.
Are you gonna try to buy real estate in Florida, like multifamilies, or are you just gonna keep in this area?
I'll do real estate till the day I die.
Yeah,
like people like, I'll never retire.
Yeah.
But see that's a difference, right? So like when I was running my company that I sold, I couldn't wait to get to the weekend.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to sell it. I couldn't wait to think of retirement. Now, I'll never retire.
Yeah.
I love doing what I'm doing, right? So yeah, I'll do projects in Florida. I'll continue to do them here.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that'll never end.
Yeah. Because how do you feel like you being not having things affected you now at this point where you can go and make money? You know what I mean? Like, was that like a motivator where you're like, I need to make money because I know what it's like to not have money?
You know what and I should have said this on camera, but no, you know what the biggest thing?
The cameras are still going. So.
Okay. So you can cut this and put it back in.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that from growing up from where I came from, right? When you're going through it, it sucks, right? You think like you're so unlucky, like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
But now when you get to a point where you get hungry because you want a better life, right?
Yeah.
And the hunger of wanting the better life and the confidence that you can have it is a dangerous combination. So like in most rooms that I sit, like I always feel like I have an edge, not in an egotistical way.
Yeah.
I just know how much I've been through.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know my only limitations are what I set in my own head. Like I know, like it's that experience growing up was, everyone says it made me what I am today, but it just gave me this toughness that I know how to go get what I want.
Yeah.
And I have the motivation and the fire to do it. And would I have had that if I didn't have my upbringing? I don't know. I worry about my kids not having that same fire.
Yeah. So what do you think, because that's a good point, what do you think like you're trying to, because you do a really good job. Luke's really, really fucking smart. So like what do you do to kind of like help Luke kind of prepare him for when he gets older and things like that?
I lead by example. So like Luke knows I don't have to get up every day.
I mean, Luke's what, 15? He's taking cold showers every day. Like,
and he's studying real estate and Forex and stuff. So I try to lead by example because I feel like the best advice my mother ever gave me for parenting was, you can say whatever you want, but your kids are going to watch what you do. Your actions are the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
So like Luke knows, like I don't have to get up and grind every day.
Yeah.
But I do every day. Like every day I'm up early and I'm working, right? And so I just try to lead by example.
Yeah.
And I try and I discuss my wins and my setbacks with him so that he understands that,
it's not always great.
It's not always a straight line.
Yeah.
Like there's hurdles. Like and so I think he's got, even though he didn't have the edge in the upbringing that I've had, I think he has a huge advantage because
he just learned so many things that most kids don't know at that age.
And he gets it. I think he gets it. He understands it, and he doesn't take things for granted, which is important.
I remember even like when he was like 12, he was like, I'm not going to work a job. Like, why would I want to work per hour when I like, and that kid's 12 years old and he already understands business.
He understands it. So now it, he understands all that stuff. Now he's got to go through the experience, to feel what failure feels like, what doubt feels like, right? Because like I tell both my kids all the time, like, don't ever be afraid to fail. Like, go fail. Like, you're going to learn so much from failing. Fail as many times as you possibly can. Just don't let it get the best of you. Don't let it knock you down. Just keep working. So I feel like
what do you feel like a couple of those setbacks, obviously like the first business, like what are some of the other setbacks that like you've maybe talked to Luke about and like that you've had that like have helped you get to kind of where you're at?
Well, obviously the upbringing, right? But then after that, I talked to him about the first business failing. I mean, literally believing without a shadow of a doubt, you're close to being worth $100 million. I'd already picked out the Mercedes.
Yeah.
I thought we were getting bought out.
Because I mean, if you were a couple years earlier and you were peaking at right before the .com, you would have.
I would have cashed out.
Yeah.
So I'd already picked out. I remember going to 2 Mercedes dealerships and picking out my Mercedes because I was that like. So when that failed, that was So I've spoken to him and talked to him a lot about how to pick yourself up. And the big thing too is like, okay, now you're going from what you think you're going to be to now you're just a measly flooring salesman. Driving a shitty car, and you have to start literally over. And the psychology of that. And the big thing is like, I think so many people now with social media, like you can have so much in an instant, but success doesn't come to you like in an instant. You've got to.
Because you got to be because even if you get it, if you're not that person, you're going to end up losing it anyways.
100%. Yeah. Again, that goes back to everything I've ever accomplished. There was never a lottery ticket moment because I'd already experienced it before it happened. So like I was already that guy that was worthy of that moment because I had done the work to get there. And same thing now. So like 5 years from now, we've got a bunch of real estate and development and I have, things I'm working on, but in my mind, I'm already
you're already past that.
I'm already past that. Like our 11 unit will be done in the next 30 days. I'm not lying to you. I was already past that 2 years ago. And it's not even done yet. Right. So I'm literally right now, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, like I still feel like I'm not playing big enough. Like how do I how do I challenge myself even more to stay motivated, And I think that's the fun part. If you're only focused on the destination, you'll be let down more often than not. And I think getting back to the journaling, I feel like writing your goals and your dreams down every day kind of helps you stay in the moment, where you don't get weighed down by the failures along the way.
Because I feel like too, everything in business is you always have to look so far forward that it's like you kind of get lost in like the here and the now. So I feel like that's definitely
small wins. Small wins is so like you need to me the journal, the vision of where you're trying to get to is the fuel, right? That's what keeps you and by journaling you're reminding yourself, because if you don't have a North Star, you're not going to get there. And you'll get distracted. So the North Star is the journaling. That's the reminder. And then the small wins along the way is what gives you confidence to keep going.
I feel like another thing, because I've obviously been journaling for a while, not every day as much as you, but one thing that I've noticed, like looking back on some of my old journals, so like I'll review every month, the end of the month, like
me
kind
too.
of what happened. And there was a couple times where like I would look back and the worst month would come right before like the best month. So like right before I got my gym was like during COVID. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with training. Like I want to do this. The gym that I'm training at sucks. Like the guy who owns it, he's being an asshole. And I'm just like, dude, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. And then next month I end up getting the gym. So it's like, I feel like that's a reminder when you're going through things that it's like, there's always something good on the other side. Because if you just get weighed down by the moment, then it's like, you can easily get lost in it. So
no question. And I think the other thing that the journal's really good for is, so I've been journaling since 2013.
Yeah. That's
I still have those journals.
Yeah. I try to keep all of mine.
So when I go into those journals and I look back, I think about how small I was playing at the time. So, but in that moment, you think like you're thinking so big, right? But I was thinking so small. And so like, I do this exercise all the time. I'll look at and I'll say, okay, like, how can I think bigger? Like, how can I stretch? How can I really maximize? Because I know 5 years from now, if we do this podcast again, I'll tell you, I was thinking small right now, And I think that's the journal as much as anything. It gives you great perspective on, what you're capable of, what your opportunities are, what your mindset is. I can't recommend it enough.
What's your, 'cause I remember asking this like 3-4 years ago where I was like, what's like your end goal? So like, what's like? Because I remember then you were like, oh, I want to be $100 million.
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I was actually thinking about that on the ride over. And honestly, the truth is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know I'll get to 100 million.
Yeah.
In value, just from the buildings we're doing and stuff.
Okay.
And I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
I will. I know I will.
Yeah. But
I really don't. I still feel like I still haven't even cracked my potential. Like I'm still trying to figure. I'm going to be 50 in July, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So like I don't really have a number. I know I'm starting to realize that I'm chasing time more than I am net worth.
So talk about that more. What do you mean by that?
So, I love what I'm doing, but I feel like I told you I have this 5-year plan. Okay, this 5-year plan is to have a house in Florida, have the house on the ocean in Maine, and do whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want. With travel. I journal this all the time. I want to be able to travel without limits. Yeah. I don't want limits. I don't want a return flight. Yeah. I want to go, and I'll come home when I feel like it. Yeah. And I'll work when I feel like it. Yeah. I'm not there. Yeah. But so I'm chasing more. So like as I'm crafting,
freedom, I guess you could say. That's
as I'm crafting this 5-year plan, I'm designing my life in a way where that becomes possible. Through passive income opportunities. So how do I get there? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Not that I don't want to work, because again, I'll still do that. Yeah. But I'm going to do it on my own terms. Yeah. But time to me is the ultimate asset, net worth, like wealth.
I mean, you can buy it, but you can't buy more of it. Like having money buys you time where you have freedom to do stuff. But
yeah. So we only have a certain amount of time. That's what you do with that time, right? And that's so that's kind of, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I was chasing, I want to have not necessarily materialistic things, but I wanted to be worth X amount of money. I wanted to have this, I wanted to have that. Now I've set myself up to have a good rest of the way. Yeah. But now how do I get my time back? Yeah. Where you can go away for as long as you want, never have to worry, and do what you want, when you want, how you want. Yeah. To me, that's the ultimate wealth. Yeah. And do it with my family. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimate fuck you money.
Yeah.
Be able to do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal. So.
That's it.
But.
That's it.
Awesome. Yeah, that was pretty good. Cap it there. Awesome.
That was good.
Easy.